These are Nebraska corn farmers. They work in acres, not hours, harvesting the energy and climate solutions the world needs. We are proud to stand with you.
The success of tomorrow's soy industry depends on the actions we take today. The future is here, and the time to move is now.
Market Journal Television for Agricultural Business Decisions is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources in partnership with the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Promotional support provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine and partial funding provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board and the Nebraska Corn Board.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebel Saklocha filling in for Bryce Duskett this week, and thanks so much for joining us today on Market Journal. We're coming to you from Burwell, Nebraska, the home of Nebraska's Big Rodeo. We've got a lot of content to get through this week, including some great tips on mitigating weeds in your soybean fields. Eric Hunt is on standby with your weekly weather forecast, and Bryce Duskett will still be tackling the markets this week with guest Darren Newsom. All that and more is heading your way today, but first we'll begin by getting acquainted with the Burwell Rodeo. The tradition of this rodeo dates back over a century. Countless professional rodeo champions have come right through this historic arena, and visitors from around the world continue to visit the cozy hamlet of Burwell, Nebraska for this one-of-a-kind experience. Joining us now is Phil Simpson, president of Nebraska's Big Rodeo. Phil, the rodeo is beloved by the community. Give us kind of a glimpse into the history of the rodeo and why it's so significant to the town.
Yeah, this is the 104th edition of Nebraska's Big Rodeo. And it's been held here on this site every year, but 2 years during World War II, they held it off-site at a local ranch those years, but it went on. It is just a huge impact in our community. The economic development, I don't know, it's above my pay grade, I guess, but they did some things where they could ping cell phones last year. We had 24,000 different visitors on this site in our community during Rodeo Week last year. So it's crazy. I mean, it brings people from all over the state, all over the country, and it comes in here. Businesses downtown. I mean, the town it just is a huge economic impact on our area, not just Burwell, but the surrounding communities as well. So it's neat to see, and the community gets behind it and dives into it. So
absolutely. Well, obviously the main attraction is all the action in the arena, but you buttoned up a few big construction projects and have a few ahead of you, it looks like. Give us an update on those and where you're at.
We're just at the final stages of conclusion of our new event center and North Grandstand. We're able to use it this year. There's some things to finish up on it once we're done with rodeo. And then June 19th, we lost our west grandstands over there. Another windstorm, 98 years old, they blew over, so we started again. We have temporary bleachers this year. We really don't know what's going to happen over there. We're still in the planning stages. We just had to get that done, taken care of, get these new things set up, and then we'll explore what's going to happen.
Thanks to Phil Simpson for giving us his time during this busy week in Burwell. And if you haven't made it out yet, there still is time to make it out and experience it for yourself. Up next, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Center for Ag Profitability recently released the final results of the 2025 Nebraska Farm Real Estate Report and found the market value of agricultural land in Nebraska has declined by 2% from the previous year. Market Journal's Bill Dodd recently caught up with Nebraska Extension educator Jim Jansen to learn more.
Every year, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln surveys market industry participants that work in the land industry. This includes land brokers, appraisers, farm managers, bankers, and others with first-hand knowledge of buying, selling, financing, or managing land. The final report of that survey was released in June and focuses on what's occurring in the land industry in respect to market values and land cash rentals across the state of Nebraska. This year, it appears that land values across Nebraska have decreased by about 2% from the previous year.
Those viewers watching us today might note that maybe the real estate tax assessments have done things that are different than what the current market value is. You have to remind yourself that the assessed value is a different process from what the current market value might be. Nonetheless, this is the first time we noted a slight decline in the market value of land compared to the last several years where we noted an increase over 30% on average across the state. Some of the guiding forces influencing the decline in the market value of land, especially on the cropland side, include the current state of crop prices, interest rates, and input expenses. We have tighter financial circumstances, especially on the cropland side. And with that being said, some of the major economic forces that guide the market value of land have definitely been influenced by some of these factors that we noted. Now, it's somewhat of a mixed story, because while we did note a slight decline on the overall market value, and yes, the decline in the market value of irrigated and dryland cropland and things like that, we also did note a small increase on the grazing land side. So what factors are leading to some of the higher prices that we're seeing for the market value of grazing land or hay land, the things that support our cow-calf and cattle industry? Well, some of the factors that were reported were the current state of livestock prices, primarily for cattle. I also noted some things like expansion. Farm expansion is another factor. People are always competitively trying to position their operation, but current livestock prices were noted as a very strong factor or force that was leading to. But overall, we're seeing a little bit of a change compared to what we've seen in the last several years. And even to say 2 years ago, the current state of livestock prices were substantially different than they are right now. So the two big things to keep an eye on: where's the profitability of farm and ranching headed here for 2026? And what is the cost to finance, whether to finance a line of credit for the upcoming year or to finance a long-term land loan?
This is the 47th edition of the annual series, and these reports provide essential insight into agricultural land dynamics for stakeholders across Nebraska. In today's market, objective market information and analysis like this are more critical than ever. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.
Thanks for that information, Bill. If you would like to read the 2025 Nebraska Farm Real Estate Report, we've added a link to the full PDF version along with this story on the Market Journal website. Moving on, as our crew was headed toward Burwell, we had the opportunity to catch up with a local producer in the Valley County area to see how things are shaping up this growing season in the heart of Husker country. I'm here with Jay Knapp of Knapp Farms near Ord. Jay, it started out pretty dry this spring and then took a turn for the better. Tell us about growing conditions this year and what things are looking like.
It did start out probably the driest March, April, May that we've had. And we ended up watering most of the crop up, which was a concern. And about the 20th of May, it started raining. And through June and most of July now, we've had really good rain. Hay crop looked short. Now we're growing a lot of hay. It's been difficult to put it up, but that's a good thing. Corn looks good. We've had a few storms. Kind of spotty, but the rain's been wonderful. Just changed the environment completely, and it's just been a real blessing here.
Talk about some of those challenges you mentioned and what you've been doing to mitigate that throughout the summer.
Our first challenge was drought, so we delayed turning cattle out on grass just because the grass really didn't grow till the end of May, which is unusual here, and we have hard grass here. So that's probably the first thing. Second thing, we watered to get the crop up and pre-watered. Challenges now are just watching for rust and putting fungicide on the corn, and that's probably our main challenges today.
Well, as you look ahead with marketing on your mind, what are some of your considerations or some things that come to mind on that front?
Great question. I wish I had a great answer. We feed cattle and farm, so the cattle side has been good. It's been actually unbelievable. Market sets new highs every month, and where that goes, we don't know. Corn is going to be a challenge. Looks like a lot of corn. It looks like our crop is good, so good bushels will help, a lot of bushels per acre. We're going to hope for a late season rally here. Whether we get that or not, I don't know, but we're probably into our next growing season before we get a big change.
Thanks to Jay for taking the time to chat with us this week. Hard to believe in just a few short weeks we're going to be thinking of the upcoming harvest season. Next up, we're sending things back to Lincoln, where Bryce Duskett is standing by.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rebel. We are, in fact, back at our Lincoln studio with the newest member of the Market Journal team. That is Mr. Steve White. We saw him on last week's broadcast, but wanted to spend a few moments getting to introduce you to our audience.
Right.
Steve, you're not new to TV by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
been doing this for about 25 years, going out and about across rural Nebraska telling those stories.
What is it about your style of storytelling?
Well, I like to get out there and talk to people where things are happening. I like to get out of the studio, no offense, and see what real people are dealing with, and really, like I said, tell those stories, see what people are doing out there.
You've made that your specialty over the years, 25 plus years.
Yes,
of
just
traveling
there's not a place I probably haven't tried to put a camera or a microphone to get right in close to the action, but then I think I'd really try to tell a deeper story of what is happening and dig into some issues and make it in a compelling way, hopefully.
Well, we're excited to have you here on the Market Journal team. Welcome. And you've got another one of your original features coming up on today's show.
We certainly do. As we know, agriculture powers Nebraska, and, well, manufacturing, it's a close second. And often those two things intersect. Much of what we build certainly supports agriculture. Both industries face critical workforce shortages, and we're talking more about a unique program sparking interest in a high-demand field.
There are no s'mores and songs around the campfire at this summer camp, one meant to spark an interest in a future career as young Nebraskans weld their future. Good jobs in the state go unfilled, inspiring a unique camp to equip kids with hands-on skills.
Quality assurance.
As her son wrestled, Miley Elag Bader grappled with a thought. Employers need welders. And as head of the Leadership Center, a retreat center that works with FFA advisors, she has a contact list filled with welding teachers.
Alex teaches welding. You've taught welding. John, you were an ag teacher. Why wouldn't we meet those needs? Like, why wouldn't we do that? And we all just stared at her like, why wouldn't we do that?
Partnering with Strobel Companies, a homegrown manufacturer building ag equipment in Clarks, a town of less than 400, they brought together 40 middle and high schoolers from schools across Nebraska for a week. Students honed their craft while discovering career paths in a trade vital to Nebraska's ag-driven economy.
So we kind of built the camp that we wish we could have went to. And then when we started making the pitch to educators or to actual partners, we were like, look, this might be a chance to introduce young people to welding as a really viable career.
Led by Central City ag teacher and welder Alex Stoker, the camp goes beyond the weld. Students visited industry leaders, seen firsthand how welding fuels everything from ag equipment to carbon capture pipelines for ethanol plants, even race cars. From Columbus to Grand Island, these companies are desperate for skilled workers.
All of our industry partners that we went and toured and talked to, they pretty much would offer these kids a job on the spot if they were old enough.
For students like Park Loftus, a senior from Takema Herman, and Eric Dibdahl, a freshman from Seward, the camp is a hands-on chance to hone skills they already use on their family farms.
We farm livestock, so there's a lot of gates, and that's mostly what I do.
Yeah, I just fix little ram things. We don't have a ton of stuff, but some harrows, some fence.
Yeah, I think I'll either weld for a career or farm, so both of those I'd like to have the good skills of all the welding.
The reality is some of these kids would like to return to the farm, but the economics make it difficult. Having a skilled trade may pay off and eventually offer a path back.
Agriculture is changing a lot, and it's really hard for a younger person to get involved without having that, really good connection or a lot of resources available. So being able to have a skill and then being able to farm as like a second job or kind of as a hobby on the side of things, that's really important. And being able to have those skills of welding or another technical skill where those kids can make a lot of money is one of those things that can help support them when they want to do their own farming operations.
The camp isn't just about technical skills. On the final day, students turn scrap metal into sculptures, sparking creativity and showing welding's diverse applications, from ag to art. With industry partners building farm and industrial equipment, the camp connects students with real-world opportunities, inspiring them to dream big.
these kids have walked home going, when do I get to come back? And that's pretty great.
With plans to expand to 6 or 7 camps next summer, the Leadership Center is welding a pipeline of talent to meet Nebraska's workforce, one spark at a time. Reporting, I'm Steve White. They've got plans to expand that to 6 or 7 camps next summer. The Leadership Center, you could say, welding a pipeline of talent to meet Nebraska's workforce needs, one spark at a time. Bryce?
Good story, Steve.
Thanks.
Very visual. Always good to see those folks out there getting the hands-on skill. That's
Definitely
much
getting some hands-on skills, indeed.
Looking forward to more of Steve's stories coming up over the next several weeks. He's here on Market Journal. Glad to have Steve part of the team. Up next, it's our chance to dive deep into the markets. And this week, I was joined by Darren Newsom to discuss all things impacting the grain markets in particular. Here's our discussion from Wednesday afternoon. Well, Darren, thanks for making time here for us on Market Journal. I want to start our conversation off with corn. We're in quite a narrow trading range and low volume at this point in the week as you and I are discussing the market. But as you see it, do you see it just as a summer slumber, or is it a sign of something bigger impacting the corn market?
It's an interesting question, Bryce, because given what I've seen, and it was just it's just driving along the interstate through western Iowa, it certainly looks like, and from what I'm hearing from across the Midwest and Plains, is that the corn probably, new crop corn prices should probably be going lower. But as you said, they're pretty much range bound in here. Now, I know last week we did see new contract lows, but they bounced right back. So I would expect us just to continue to grind here through the summer, and I'm not looking for volume to pick up any great deal. And then seasonally, we can start setting our sights on the usual seasonal low, which tends to occur towards the latter part of August.
Mm-hmm. One of the things you mentioned recently in your commentary had to do with the National Corn Index putting stocks to use, I think, at a little bit above 13%. How does that figure shape your view of corn prices as we head into harvest?
Again, it's larger than the previous 10-year average for the end of July, but it's not extraordinarily so. So, how this shapes what I'm looking at is, it tells us that we're going to have ample supplies to meet demand as we make our way through the rest of the summer, which is just another month and a week or whatever that might be. So we're going to have plenty of supplies as we get closer to the 2025 harvest. Then we look at what the September-December corn spread's been doing, but more importantly, what the Dees March. And the Dees March has been posting for most of this week new low daily closes, meaning the carry is stronger every day. So indicating that the commercial side just continues to put pressure on this market, indicating they are growing more comfortable with whatever production turns out to be.
All right, let's switch from corn over to soybeans. We saw early gains after some of the trade deals were announced out of the White House, but volume in that market still remains light. When it comes to the demand side of the picture, particularly exports of soybeans, this time of the year, is there any hope to get some of that going?
To begin with, there are no trade deals. I know the White House says there are, but there aren't. That's just part of the game of attempting to move markets. Back in the day, it was called manipulation, whatever, but there are no actual trade deals. Now, can we see exports of U.S. soybeans pick up? Probably not. Since the last week of October, first week of November, we've seen the pace projection based on actual weekly shipments come down consistently. I think it's something like 200 million bushels below where it was there in late October. So we know the U.S. is still going to be a secondary player. That's not going to change. And as we go forward, again, if we look at the Nov-Jan spread, the commercial side is just getting more bearish this market seemingly every day.
All right, well, let's get a question in here about wheat. Saw a bit of a pop in the Kansas City contracts here this week, but it kind of took some of those gains away as you and I are visiting on Wednesday. You talk about it might be more short covering than true commercial buying in the wheat complex. Does that still remain true here at the midweek?
I think so. I don't see any reason for the commercial side to all of a sudden turn into buyers. And given, funds were still holding a net short futures position for most of the week, it was not surprising to see a little bit of a bounce particularly in the hard red winter market. Fundamentally, you mentioned available stocks to use in corn. It's incredibly bearish in the hard red winter. I think something like 45.5, 45.3, something like that as we get close to the end of July. Similar situation in soft red winter and in hard red spring. So the overall U.S. supply and demand situation, the real supply and demand situation, simply isn't getting less bearish as we make our way through the months.
Thanks, Bryce. If you have any questions for any of our future analysts, you are welcome to drop us a line anytime, and we'll be sure to pass those questions along. Well, severe weather is just a part of summer in Nebraska, but it doesn't have to be deadly. According to the National Safety Council, from 2014 to 2023, there have been 27 deaths and 97 injuries reported and confirmed that were weather-related. Not all of these obviously were farmers, but some were. Tornadoes, high winds, and dust storms have caused death from flying debris and loss of visibility. Flooding and winter weather have caused deaths as well. As severe weather ramps up through the summer months, be sure to play it safe out in the field and around your farms. Learn more about these concerns in the July issue of Nebraska Farmer. Well, it's time now to get a quick check on the weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Eric Hunt. Well, Eric, it's warm out here today in Burwell. How are things shaping up around Nebraska in the week ahead?
Well, thanks, Rebel. It's certainly going to be a hot and humid start to the week for most of us here across Nebraska. Compliments to this ridge at 500 millibars, which will be centered over Kansas. Now, the good news is this is not going to be a prolonged heat wave. It's going to be very hot for a couple of days. We should see this ridge retrograde toward the south and west and flatten out a little bit. And this trough that's currently over Hudson Bay on Monday should slide toward the southeast as we head into the middle portion of the week. And at the surface, it's going to be driving a cold front through the north-central United States that should be getting into Nebraska by late in the day on Tuesday. It's really going to be hot to start the week. Monday likely going to be the hottest day with temperatures over 100 degrees across a good portion of southwestern Nebraska. Likely the low to mid-90s elsewhere in the state. I do think we're going to have very high humidities. So probably looking at heat index values being 105, maybe 110 across a good portion of central and eastern Nebraska. Definitely looking at heat advisory criteria for a couple of days. I think by late Tuesday, though, we should see temperatures drop off just a little bit here across the northern portion of the state. We should also see some chances of showers and thunderstorms later on the day on Tuesday across the northern portion of the state, probably a little bit further south on Wednesday and early Thursday. Good news, though, is most places in the state have a pretty good chance of picking up a half inch of moisture here in the next several days. Now, again, that's not going to be an equitable half inch of rain, but the good news is everybody has at least a chance of picking up some decent precipitation as we head through the week. Temperatures will cool off significantly behind the cold front highs across most state in the 70s on Thursday. At least that's the expectation right now. And by Friday, I think what we're looking at, this is what I'm showing you here, is precipitable water in the atmosphere. So this is representative of higher pressure at the surface, drier air. With high pressure there, though, we're going to get some return flow coming up around the Atlantic from the Gulf. So that's going to push a lot of moisture up into the high plains. And we should see a pretty good chance of widespread showers and thunderstorms across the western portion of the state late Thursday into Friday. That should slide its way toward the east, but I do think the best chance of picking up significant precipitation later in the week, they'll be here across the western portion of the state. CPC is in pretty good agreement that we are going to get some pretty good chances for more precipitation as we head out here into the first part of August. Temperatures likely to remain relatively cool, particularly the eastern portion of the state as we head into the first portion of August. So again, we are looking at potentially having an extended period of cooler temperatures coming up. That's going to be more on the cooler maximum temperatures, not so much on the minimum temperatures. And some of this will be because we're going to have quite a few days of cloud cover. So we have had quite a few days of cloud cover here across a lot of this region in the last couple of weeks. We certainly have had relatively high humidity here at the surface across a good portion of this portion of the country here so far in July. And that certainly has probably been a little bit problematic with some of our diseases. I know, talking to some plant pathologists, there's been quite a bit of white mold and other diseases on corn. White mold, of course, being soybean, but definitely have heard some stuff on corn as well. The good news with the moisture, though, is we've seen a lot of drought improvement across the state so far in this summer. So some parts of central and northeastern Nebraska have seen 3, in some cases 4 category improvements on the drought monitor. So we now have just a little over a third of the state in drought. That's a significant improvement over where we were in May. Soil moisture a little bit low here across portions of the Panhandle, but generally speaking, everywhere else in the state, we're kind of in okay shape. Precip round for the week ending July 19th, 2025. Back to you, Rebel.
Thanks, Eric. And finally today, we're taking a look back on the 2025 Weed Management Field Day. There we had the opportunity to get some great advice from Extension Educator Amit Jalla on how to keep those pesky weeds out of your soybean fields.
So overall message for this field day was just to adopt integrated weed management option, including cover crops, for example, cereal rye cover crop. We also had a project about hairy wedge, how you can utilize for weed suppression and which can provide some additional nitrogen to our corn and sorghum production. We had number of studies in soybean. Number one is how is the difference it can make for weed management when you plant soybean early, sometime in mid-April versus in first week of May, in combination with herbicides. And we used compact row spacing, 15-inch row spacing, which can help to suppress weeds. We also had a project about planting some cereal rye cover crops such as barley or oat 1 month before planting soybean, and then directly plant soybean when those oat and barley were active and green. It's the time of the year when Palmer amaranth will be somewhere between 2-inch to 10-inch height. The only option will be right now in soybean particularly to use some post-emergence herbicides. We don't really have many options, but you need to remember what herbicide resistant trait you have planted. There were some instances this year when grower applied some wrong herbicide in wrong type of soybean. So first thing I would recommend is you need to make sure whether you have planted extend flex soybean or if you have planted endless soybean. My message is not think weed management as a one-year deal for management of particularly Palmer amaranth in soybean, so it can produce no seeds at all. So zero seed production for Palmer amaranth will be the greatest message I can do. Number one, don't let Palmer to emerge. They can use some pre-emergence herbicide or use some fall planted cover crops to suppress early season growth of Palmer amaranth. And second thing they can do is if Palmer amaranth will emerge, don't let them to produce seeds. Means they can do their best job to control them by using post-emergence herbicides or by using some other methods. The third thing is if they will produce seeds, then try to do their best job so those seeds do not go back to the soil. So cleaning combine, maybe hand harvesting the top portion or inflorescences of the Palmer amaranth plant can reduce the overall seed bank addition. So we don't need to deal with them in next few years.
Great information there from Amit, and don't forget to bookmark the Nebraska Extension events calendar on your favorite browser to keep tabs on other future Extension field days like this. Well, unfortunately, that's going to be all the time we have for this week's show. If you missed a story and want to catch up, you can do so by liking Market Journal on YouTube and social media to stay up to date each week. We'll hope to see you right back here next time. Until then, I'm Rebel Saklocha, wishing you a wonderful weekend.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.